It's a few minutes past 11 in the morning on the 15th of May, 1934. All is well. Foggy, but well. The Nantucket Shoals lightship, number LV-117, is anchored 43 miles from land in the Nantucket Shoals in the course of the transatlantic passenger route. She is 135 feet and 3 inches long, 30 feet wide, and displaces 630 tons. She is sending out radio messages and fog signals to any incoming vessels. However, this didn't always go without incident. In January, the United States liner Washington collided with LV-117, and it was thought that she might sink as it damaged some hull plating. But in the end, the lightship was fine. Rather ironically, just 1 month earlier in April, her radio operator, John Perry, told some friends, quote, "Someday we are just going to get it head on and that will be the finish. One of those big liners will just ride through us." Unquote. 1 month later, he would be proven correct. LV-117 is performing duties as usual in particularly thick fog. She is sending out radio and fog messages of all kinds, with her towering lamps bright as they should be. She is sending signals out to the Cunard White Star liner Olympic. Olympic thinks they are heading straight towards the lightship, and is going to steer off course when they get her fog messages. This move is commonly made. In fact, it's how Washington collided with her just a few months prior. However, this move is massively frowned upon. This course change was made on Olympic at 10:55 a.m. when they got LV-117's fog and radio signals. Olympic was heading at 12 knots. As LV-117's safety signals sounded, they appeared to be off Olympic's starboard bow, but in reality, the course change Olympic made was a course change pointing them straight toward the lightship. Just a few minutes later, one of the lookouts posted on the Cunard White Star liner spotted a light just ahead, and then a red hull. As he rang the emergency bell 3 times, the signal for a dangerous object dead ahead, Captain Binks on the giant liner immediately ordered hard to starboard and full speed astern, as well as to close the watertight doors throughout the ship. This was ordered so quickly that the Olympic slowed to 3 knots. But even still, it just wasn't ordered out fast enough. Captain Braithwaite on LV-117 heard First Mate Mosher yell, quote, "The Olympic is upon us!" and quickly rang the bell for danger, informing all of LV-117's crew. At 11:06 a.m., Olympic rammed LV-117 and split the lightship in half. The passengers on the Olympic barely noticed the collision. If they even felt it at all, that is. Some went out on deck only to find the smell of oil lingering around. Immediately, Olympic's portside emergency boat was swung out and launched, followed by the starboard emergency boat, and then one of her motor launches. Heading as quickly as they could to the accident, the 3 lifeboats launched managed to rescue LV-117's captain, wireless operator, and 5 other crewmen. Once brought back aboard the stopped liner, they were taken into medical areas of the ship. Unfortunately, 3 more would die from their injuries. The list of people that survived the sinking are Captain Braithwaite, First Mate Clifton Mosher, radio operator John Perry, and oiler Lawrence Robert. The little lightship sank in only a few minutes, if not quicker, so quickly that anyone below decks had little to no chance of survival. The list of crew lost in the sinking were engineer William Perry, oiler Justin Richmond, cooks I. Pinna and Alfred Montero, and seamen John Roderick, John Forts, and E. B. George. The New York Times responded to the accident, saying, quote, nosing through the dense pall of the fog, the boats searched the area for almost 2 hours, while those on board the liner prayed for their success. A hatch drifted past, bearing the figure of an unconscious man. Shouts from the liner directed one of the lifeboats to the rescue. The same boat picked up a swimmer not far away, and the floating body of a man who appeared to be dead went past. The lifeboats disappeared from sight in the murk, and the watchers from the liner waited breathlessly. A red buoy bearing the name Nantucket floated by, informing most of the passengers for the first time what they had struck. After 3/4 of an hour, the starboard lifeboat came into view. As those who eagerly lined the rails saw that it contained only one figure aside from those at the oars, and that figure was motionless, they groaned. But a minute later, the port boat appeared with 5 or 6 men in the blue monkey suits of the lighthouse service. 2 of those also appeared to be lifeless. One man in civilian clothes, Captain Braithwaite, sat stiff and upright. A cut on his head bled profusely. Unquote. The responses to the accident by the lightship's crew sound like they can be very inconsistent, but I am not entirely familiar with the lightship's layout or crew, so I will try my best to present it. Captain Braithwaite responded to the accident, saying, quote, the moment she hit us, the boiler exploded, and the inside was filled with steam. I don't know how the firemen were lost, but I think they might have tried to reach a lifeboat and got swept under. I had enough time to get to my cabin, get a life belt, and come back on deck. Of course, that takes no longer than it does to say it. We are usually ready. Unquote. First Mate Clifton Mosher responded to the accident 2 months later. Quote, we saw the Olympic loom out of the fog a short distance away. The visibility was only 500 feet. A crash was inevitable. I sounded the collision alarm. We all donned the life preservers. Then we waited. When the collision came, it was more like a hard push and a terrific shaking, a crunching and grinding. It was not a loud smash, as one might expect. The Olympic kept coming through. Unquote. Radio operator John Perry responded to the accident saying, quote, I barely had time to get on deck and swim for my life. Unquote. In the end, Captain Braithwaite would die from his injuries just a few months later. 6 months after the collision, Captain John Binks of the Olympic retired. In total, out of 11 crew members, 4 would die. 7 would be rescued, and out of that 7, 3 more died. At 12:29 p.m., Binks started the course again. Once they arrived in New York, Olympic underwent an inspection, and while she did have some dented hull plates, she was still perfectly safe to leave, and she was repaired in Southampton after her return trip. Cunard White Star entirely paid for a reparation, Nantucket Shoals Lightship number LV-112, which became LV-117's replacement. LV-112 is the largest lightship ever built and still exists as a museum in Boston. LV-117's wreck was found in the 1970s. However, it was not confirmed to be the same lightship until 1998. She's lying on her port side, just 200 feet, or 61 meters deep.